All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. I am so thrilled to be interviewing my next guest. This is Helen Hill. Helen is a multi-hyphened business owner, author, freelance business coach, designer, writer, podcaster, and imperfect environmentalist. I love that. After a very squiggly career and 10 years of treating her business as a side hobby, she launched herself into full-time self-employment in 2018 and has never looked back. Helen built a thriving business in less than 2 years, saving her sanity and health in the process. We'll be talking about that a little bit too. Her highly commended award-winning book, Falling Off the Ladder, tells the story of that leap and how she did it, and it provides you with the tools so that you can do it too. Helen has also been shortlisted for multiple freelance and business awards, featured on the 2021 Top 40 Digital Women to Watch list, and she's an award winner for her contributions to Industry Journal Communicator. Helen, welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be
It's
here.
my pleasure, my pleasure. So you have had, I guess, kind of a twisting journey, a twisting route from where you started to where you are now in terms of your career. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I call it my very squiggly career. It's so I actually did a degree and a master's degree in graphic design and sort of bits of advertising and things in there as well. And I went into the industry, but never quite felt like I was in the right place, severely lacking in confidence in my ability. And I plodded along for a little bit until someone actually approached me about going into lecturing. So I did that. And I did my qualification year. I even worked in a prison teaching arts therapy and things like that for a while as part of that. And I became a lecturer I had a great first year in one college, but then I moved to another one and had a really rough time there. And while I was there, I was diagnosed with MS. And basically that seemed to be me signed off, that they just thought, well, there's no point then. And I was very much pushed out. And I ended up working as a teaching assistant for a little while, just while I picked myself back up, and then working in secondary schools, developing basically e-learning. So helping teachers use the school's iPads and things like that in lessons, and also developing literacy with the very gifted and the lower ability children. So I'd gone on a very, very windy route until someone actually approached me on LinkedIn saying, why don't you go for this job in an e-learning company? And it just, as a designer, and it just pulled everything together suddenly. And while I was there, we realized I could write, I could develop learning. I understood how brains worked in learning situations and things. And I became a bit of everything. So the design, the writing, the building, and all of that. And after 4 years there, again, I had a very rough time there. Health, mentally and physically, massively declined. And I just got to a point where I had to just hand my notice in. There was no other option. So while I was off sick, a letter had come through and it was the final straw. And I handed my notice in with nowhere to go, nothing to do. Launched myself into full-time Unlikely Genius, which is the main business. I'd had it on the side for 10 years, just doing bits of logos. And within 2 days, got my first contract. And that's that. I've never stopped since. So, yeah.
But I mean, that must have taken so much courage to just hand in your notice. I mean, you were kind of up against it a little bit, but even so, there are a lot of women that would not have done that, because it's kind of the devil you know is safer than the devil you don't know. So what I guess I'd be interested to know what your thought processes were at the time. Did you have to talk yourself into that, or did it seem like a natural step to take?
No, I had started to look for other work, but I'd got to such a rock bottom place where I was having panic attacks every day at the thought of going into work, then while I was at work, and then I'd get home and be thinking about all the things that had been said to me and stuff like that. And I was in a real bad cycle of anxiety and depression, and that was affecting the MS. And I do have a condition with my spine as well. So that was then impacting that and the pain levels and everything. And it just got to the point that there was no other solution. They weren't going to change, and I just did not fit in. And I just got to that point where I just thought, I'm not putting up with it anymore. I can't take this. If they don't value me and they don't respect me, then why? I was getting to the point where I thought I was totally worthless. And no, when this letter came through and I rang my partner, and I think he'd had the final straw as well, and he just said, quit. Just quit. And it was great that I had his support and my parents and everyone just saying, get the heck out of there, and you can do anything, just get out and we'll figure the next step afterwards.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky in that respect, and we don't have children or anything, so there wasn't the worry about, but we're all going to starve or anything like that. But it just couldn't carry on. Basically, it was desperate measures, I think.
Well, it was so good that you had the support. And so I guess for any woman in our audience who is considering making a big change and feeling it's scary and not sure if she should do it, maybe talk to someone, talk to friends, talk to family members, talk to supportive people. Because often people around us can see things that we don't see ourselves, like your friend that said, hey, come on, just put this all together, go for this. And sometimes if we don't have quite the impetus inside, someone beside us can give us that little push to get us over the start line. So now it just took 2 years for your business to thrive. And what do you attribute that to? Because that's relatively quick, but not unheard of.
Yeah. It didn't take 2 years, to be honest, but I think part of it was the fact that like I said, the business had already ran in a very different form, but on the side for 10 years. So I at least had a name and a website and all those kind of things set up. So that gave me a good step to just straight away putting myself out there. The wealth of experience, I for years thought, well, who's going to employ me now? Because I'd had this wiggly career. I just kept thinking, they're going to think I'm just a failure. And I thought I was a failure anyway. And funnily enough, it was all that wealth of experience finally coming together and putting it out there in the right way that actually is my biggest selling point now. And people take me on because I do the full process instead of hiring like 3 different freelancers. And I think that, and getting, as you've just said, actually getting the right people behind me. So not just at home, but I very quickly established myself in the freelance community, and they have been an absolute rock. And I would say that anyone that is thinking of making the leap, get yourself in the little groups, the networks and all of that. Many of them are free. And even last year when I had a really rough ride we lost my dad and my grandma in quick succession and stuff, they were there. They picked up my work. They ran my business for me. They just did. They sent me cake. They sent me all, just to live off. And so I definitely get having those people around has been incredible. And even now, having the book and the podcast and all of those things, they're my publicity team. I don't have to do that much for myself because they keep talking about it in various places. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. And, it touches on a little bit, the first part of that when you were, maybe not sure. A lot of women experience what's called imposter syndrome. And even though, so you had this whole set of skills, amazing skills, and so many women do, especially as we enter kind of the middle years of our lives. We've had decades of acquiring knowledge and skills, but we don't recognize it in ourselves. I mean, is this something, did you experience imposter syndrome, or is this something that you've found that people that respond to you, your clients or people that have read the book and so on, is that a factor for them as well?
Yeah, huge. And I think that connected with the perfectionism, particularly in women, is a huge thing. And I had it from day one. I mean, obviously part of anxiety is totally just not believing in yourself and stuff. So it was all wrapped up in that as well. But even when I've managed to relieve a lot of the anxiety, I still, compare myself to other people, even some of these fabulous freelancers I'm with. And it is a big challenge. And quite often, like, people even say to me, like, oh, maybe I should write a book and stuff. And I'm like, do you want to? Do you need to for your business? Is it in you? And if they go, no, well, don't do it then. That was my thing. It was right for me. It doesn't mean it's right for you. And don't compare yourself to my journey or someone else's, because you've got to do what's right for you. And I think that's a really big step to starting to get over that and move on, because like I always talk about defining your own success, and even today I've been talking about defining your own version of switching off. Some people can switch off entirely, and I admire them people. I can't do it. So my version of switching off is still to just have that little check-in on things, each day and stuff, but that's a massive leap for me. So all along the way, you've got to define what works for you, what's right for you, your family, your income you need, all those different times, all the different things.
And, I heard someone say one time that comparison can be like a cancer, that because when we compare ourselves to others, we so often do that and find ourselves falling short of whomever we're comparing ourselves to. And And so instead of comparison, focus on inspiration. So you, instead of saying, oh, if she's written a book, I should write a book, I could say, well, she's written a book, that's inspiring me. What could I do as well? Maybe not quite that, but what could I do as well? What could I learn from you know, the courage that she took? You talk a little bit on your website about your being an overachiever. Lots of women will be, you know, me too, raising our hands, nodding our heads. What was behind that, do you think, and what did it mean in your life?
Yeah, and funnily enough, it's partly where the business name came from, of Unlikely Genius, because I never felt like I was doing amazing stuff. But then and people seem to think I was this, you know, clumsy, because I am very clumsy blonde little thing. You know, I was more into my sports and stuff. She won't be that intelligent. And then people would be really surprised. But when I did actually come out with some good ideas. And sorry, I'm just totally lost train of thought.
Oh, just the overachieving part of.
Oh yeah, overachievement. Yeah. And I think a lot of it does go back to even when I was at school, because I was this athlete and I did all the sports. I didn't just pick one, did them all. And, you know, I was competing all the weekends in the shot put, the discus, the swimming, the netball, whatever it is, and nights. And I think I've just carried that on forward, and I've always just wanted to do my best. And I don't think it's not necessarily about competing with other people. I'm competing with myself a lot of the time. And especially with the swimming, like I always used to try and beat my own time rather than other people when as an adult, when I was doing outdoor swimming. And it's just, I mean, I love learning, which is a big part of it. So I always want to learn more, and constantly, you know, I mean, the amount of books I've got on the go, my Goodreads list says I've got about 20 books, and I don't know how many audio books on the go at the moment. Plus I'm doing my coaching qualification and all these different things. And I just love it. And I'm a restless person and I can't sit still. So I think it just pushes me to do more. And we all love a bit of validation, don't we? So when you do achieve something, it is that nice thing of, it does help your imposter syndrome and your past feelings of a failure and stuff, that it just makes you think sometimes, oh yeah, I'm actually all right at this. I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just being a little more gentle with ourselves. We can be so hard on ourselves in ways that we wouldn't be with other people around us, you know? So I'm interested to know that, like, you sound like a really high energy kind of gal, and I can relate to that. And so the idea of writing a book, which requires you to sit in a chair for hours at a time and write, was that a challenge for you, or what was your process like? Did you write every day? Did you set certain time, or how did you I guess use your discipline to achieve that?
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I actually suffer from quite bad fatigue with my multiple sclerosis. So it is quite a battle to get the balance right, actually. So things that make me sit down, like writing and crochet, are actually very good for me, because it stops me going out doing like ridiculous amounts of gym classes and things like that. But I kind of accidentally fell into the process of writing the book, because I had taken part in a scheme called Write 52, where you write a blog post every week for a year, and it's just intended to get you promoting your business and just, you know, get used to the habit of writing. So I did that, and when I came to the end of that, I was in a network with someone who did a challenge about you know, book proposals and stuff, and I just started to write about mental health and all those things, and realized that actually this stuff was just pouring out of me. And so I did her challenge, ended up writing a book proposal. Next thing I know, I'd hired her as a mentor, doing her writing accountability sessions on a Monday night for 2 hours. And I wrote about 90% of the book in that writing accountability group. And quite often it was at like 9 o'clock till 11 o'clock at night. And quite often I would carry on till like midnight, even 1 a.m, just with this stuff pouring out of me. And I think for me, because it was quite cathartic writing about all of these experiences I'd had in the workplace and about something I was really passionate about, it, like I say, it just flowed for me. Book 2, I think, is going to be a bigger challenge, but I'll see.
You never know. I have a friend who writes, and he says he'll sit down and start writing. He'll just write until the writer shows up. That's his that's his plan, which I love.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, you've written about feelings of failure and lack of confidence, and I've mentioned imposter syndrome already, and you found a lot of those feelings were prolific in the freelance community. So when you shifted out of the corporate world and got into more freelance, what's behind that, do you think, in the freelance community, those really sort of harmful feelings And how did you handle them if they arose in you?
Yeah, oh, they definitely arose in me. And in fact, my first contract was quite a big challenging one because I was recovering from the experience that I'd had. Plus, I had someone that was quite probing and really kind of kept bringing the stuff to the surface when it just wasn't really needed. And it took me 10 months of that contract to really get to a point where I could then, start to move on and things as well. But yeah, I think a lot of it in the freelancer community comes from the fact that a lot of us have had rough experiences in employment. There is a really high percentage of freelancers who've got either mental health issues, eating disorders, all those things that in an open plan office are a nightmare. And because things like open plan offices are so prolific now, if you're on the neurodiversity scale or you have an eating problem and people are cooking food in microwave and the smells and all of that thing, or like I definitely have misophonia, I'm really sensitive to outside noises. And I sat by a kitchen where people would be talking behind me and making brews all day and things like that. And it can have quite a bad impact on your energy, your concentration, your stress level. It can really kind of put you in that flight mode all the time. And I think that has definitely been a big thing, and the experience of toxic workplaces, because once I started to write about it in this Write 52, the amount of people who came forward saying, I have had exactly that, or I can't believe nobody's talked about this before. And that was what led to me writing more and more, and eventually the book. And it's why I put 9 other people's stories in the book as well, because we've all had such different ones. There was one with an eating disorder, one with neurodiversity, someone that, she's had all kinds of bullying, discrimination, everything thrown at her. And, we just to make sure that people who are reading it are thinking, oh God, yeah, there are people out there that have had exactly the same experiences as we have.
Yeah. Well, let's talk some more about your lovely book. So Falling Off the Ladder. I love that. I love that title. It's a beautiful metaphor. So what's in the book? Talk a little bit about what you cover in it.
Yeah, so it's actually a double meaning as well, because of me always falling over and falling downstairs. But yeah, so it's basically a mindset manual for helping you to move from either rough work experiences, rough life experiences, whatever you've had, to acknowledge those, acknowledge where you are in the present. And then part 3 is the big section where it's about getting over all these different hurdles that we face, whether it's the feast and famine cycle, the imposter syndrome, the confidence, I feel really alone all day, every day at home, in my office, all those different topics. And so there's, my stories throughout, plus these 9 other people, and each section as well has activities just to help you kind of reflect where you are and to move on and maybe put some strategies in place for that as well.
Did you self-publish, or did you go through the traditional publishing route?
No, I decided to self-publish because I wanted control of the story with this one, and I didn't want a publisher saying, take this out, take away your voice, don't swear, I wanted it to be me, and I wanted it to be, and I knew 2 of the people I was putting in as well that they needed to swear. Yeah, very sweary ladies we are. But but yeah, I just wanted that control, and also I wanted to do it while I was in the moment. And with the traditional publishing, you can wait 2 years, 3 years, even with COVID. So yeah, I decided to do it myself. And yeah, I haven't regretted it, actually. That last part of actually uploading the book and writing all the metadata and stuff is the harder than writing the book, I think. But it's done.
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about the response to the book. What's that been like?
Oh, it's been incredible, actually. I find it quite overwhelming at times. I mean, I haven't had a single negative or even development point thrown at me yet. And so it's like, been 5-star reviews, people just constantly sharing, arriving, them reading a bit, sharing something they've done from it. And yeah, it did win the highly commended award at the Business Book Awards last month. Yeah. So that was the surprise. That was the big surprise that it was the only self-published book as well to win one of the awards. So that has been a real kind of, imposter busting thing for sure. And it's just, I think for the first time in my life, it was the one thing I said, I'm proud of this. And I'm so thrilled that it's getting the recognition for, turning what were horrendous experiences into just something positive that can help other people now.
Yeah. And, I think that's such a powerful approach to the traumas sometimes that we experience in our lives, the difficult situations where, you know, instead of being completely sideswiped by them. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of us, because I've been through something similar, just a really awful kind of toxic workplace scenario, and went through a pivot myself. And I guess that if you can just get through that dark night of the soul and get on, and then use the learning, use the experience to generate something positive, that must have been very gratifying for you.
Yeah, it was. And I think the stubbornness in me as well almost feels like I finally had the last say. But like, although I still get worried that somebody's going to come back at me. Obviously I didn't name anyone in the book or anything like that, but I still have that fear that someone at some point is going to go, how dare you talk about our company that way, or something. But yeah, it's like I say, I mean, I don't often say I'm proud of something, and I don't, I certainly did. It's when I was for starting this, I was still in a very negative place, that, you know, I was still see the negatives above the positives a lot of the time. But I think it's really helped me move on, I think, because it also helped me recognize that I have done really well, and I have re-established my health and I say that I'm not great at the moment actually, but like I've managed to move on and create not just one but 3 successful businesses now. And that is a place I never thought I'd be. People told me for years, why don't you work for yourself? And I was like, no, I only earn a bit of money doing little logos. I can't make a living of it. That's sort of gone from, and I just didn't have the confidence. So I've gone from that to where I am now it's definitely feels like an achievement.
Well, you know, from the outside looking in, listening to you, I'm sorry. I mean, some allergies going on right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I would say you've had some tremendous accomplishments. So what keeps you from saying, I'm really proud of that too? So if the book is kind of the first thing you've been able to say, I'm so proud of this, I feel so good about this. What's been behind that, do you think? And what keeps us women? Is that you know, a thing that women have that men don't, or is it not related to that? I mean, what's going on there, do you think?
I definitely think there is a gender bias with it. If women always still feel that thing, if I shouldn't celebrate, I shouldn't brag. You know, when I talk, I always say to business owners that they should be celebrating all their wins, big or small. So I, along with the book, gave away like a little book of epic wins, where it's just a notebook that they're supposed to write in every win, big or small, whatever it is, won an award, or just I made it through today and I felt rubbish, whatever it is. And, you know, keeping a smile file, as we call it, or, you know, social proof, screenshotting things and all of that. And I think you've got to do these things to start switching your mind into that positivity. And I, like I say, for a long time, my anxiety and all sorts just kept me in the negative. Plus, I had outright been told in my last job that I would not be a success and that I would not be a failure unless I was someone else. That, you know, I wasn't allowed to be this big sloth-loving, bunny-loving, clumsy fool who came in on crutches every few weeks because I'd hurt myself at netball or whatever. And it doesn't go with the corporate machine, the corporate robot thing. So I'd basically been told I wouldn't succeed. And, you know, that was one of the final things as well that made me just think this environment's not for me. But yeah, I think writing the book, doing all these positive actions, and you know, I have had therapy, I've done mindfulness, all those bits, I think yoga and all sorts that you should do to look after yourself, they all help and contribute. And I've even, after saying I never would, got into a gratitude habit now of 3 things a day. And actually it's lovely because my mum accidentally bought me an extra diary this year, and I've used that as my gratitude journal instead, just every day 3 little points. And you've got a record there of fabulous stuff that's happened all year.
Yeah.
So,
maybe not an accident that, you know, I tend to think things happen for a reason, even though we don't always see it right in the moment. I have a friend who has what she calls a dazzle jar. She has this dazzle jar on her kitchen counter, and most days she'll write out something that was, you know, great about the day, some lovely thing, someone said something to her, maybe she had some experience that was really great. And I'm not talking about big monumental things, just little things. And then at the end of the year, she pulls out all the little notes from the dazzle jar and she looks them over again. And she says it's just the most empowering, uplifting thing. And, you know, you've talked about mindset and how important that is. It's a simple thing that anyone can do, along with a gratitude journal, just at the end of each day or the beginning of the next day, writing out 3 things or 5 things that you're grateful for. It really does build on itself. And some people will dismiss it as a kind of trite exercise, but it's a very powerful thing to do. And the dazzle jar, I mean, my friend just, she pours herself a glass of wine and she dumps them all out, and she just has a fantastic time. It remembers her year, but also as I said, the empowerment she feels. And it says positivity upon positivity upon positivity. So
I was
lots of
talking
really...
to someone. I was talking to someone last week who was saying his friend did that, but she also put a £1 in every time that she put something in, like every day. So at the end of the year, she had £365 to treat herself with. And I was like, that's amazing. Why have I not done that?
Yep,
That is my next one.
That's right. Anyone can do those kinds of things.
Treat yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Helen, what's next for you? Is there another book on the horizon, or what's the next project you're excited about?
Yeah, well, I accidentally wrote half of the next book with book 1. So when I was editing, I couldn't get one of the sections to quite run in, and then realised this is a whole nother book. This is like a year on from when you've got through the first, year of your business or so. So that will come eventually. I don't think it will be this year as such. But I am training to be a coach, and I'm literally launching my coaching next week officially. Although I've actually only got 1 space left for any more clients. So that's going to be an interesting one. But the main development now, is on the coaching and that side of it, and doing lots of things to just really support other freelancers, because it just really does. It energizes me to work with them. And I absolutely love it with the podcast and with the coaching. And then for Be the Future, we have some huge, exciting things in development. So that's our environmental initiative, including books and games and all sorts of things, and exciting collaborations. So that is a big, big development point at the moment, and that will be hopefully launching properly before the end of the year.
Well, you in your intro, I said that you are a multi-hyphened person, and that's through and through. You're engaged in so many things, and I love it. You're such an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to the women listening to this interview as well. And I think one of the messages I'm getting from this is just try something. You never know. We talk ourselves out of a lot, don't we? And if we could just try, we could amaze ourselves.
Oh yeah, just throw yourself into something, and if it doesn't work, as someone said to me the other day, failure is only feedback. It's not actually failure. So I was like, I'm taking that and I'm running with that now. So just throw yourself and give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? You might find something new you love doing. That's repeatedly what I've done for 3 years. So.
And even if that thing is not the thing, it'll lead to the next thing. And, magic can happen that way. So, oh, it's been so wonderful. Helen, I'd like to invite you to share the gift you have for our audience.
Yeah, so I have a full course called Right Clients at the Right Rate. And what I'm doing is giving away the Right Clients module of that for free for anyone that's watching. So all the links will be with the talk and everything. But that will just help you to establish exactly who you want to work with, why they will bring you joy, and how you can actually get yourself in front of them.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And, I love your style. You're engaged in so many things, and you're having fun with it. I can tell you just like to have fun, and how wonderful is that? So thank you so much for participating on this masterclass. I'm very grateful. It's been just such a delight, and thank you.
Thank you. No, it's been wonderful. Thank you.